Buckle up, everyone, and welcome to Carpool Rugby League, a show where two rugby league tragics talk everything rugby league on your way to and from work. I'm Shano.
And I am the chameleon.
Welcome aboard. On with the show. Griffo, first of all, apologies to our listeners. I've had a few people ask, where's the podcast been? We've had a few technical difficulties that's been ironed out. So we are here on the airways providing you with rugby league. It would, we did have a Vegas show lined up that
We
couldn't go
started.
through. We started.
I was coming
we were
from
there.
my
We were
hotel
live by
in Las
satellite.
Vegas, Nevada.
Live by satellite, and
It was about 12 a.m.
the technical difficulties.
Back in Vegas.
Look, Griff. I think a lot's been made of Vegas. All good. Can you just give us what you thought as a fan on the ground there, what the event was like?
Okay, well, first of all, again, I echo Shano's apologies there. We certainly did try to get something out there, and I was hoping to do that from Las Vegas. What I'll say is it was a great experience personally as an NRL fan. It was awesome. I know that word gets bandied around a lot, but absolutely awesome. The experience in Las Vegas. There were NRL people all over the town, and the people from the British Super League, also the Warriors of Wigan, and the Wolves of Warrington. I think they're the
Yes,
Wolves.
that's it.
They didn't
Warrington,
play
yeah.
like Wolves.
No.
But that was we'll get to that.
Well, that was just
those traveling English fans. They bring an absolutely great atmosphere to the game. Even though when you're in the ground, and I was seeing them all over Las Vegas, because everyone's sort of getting around in their club kit. I was trying to get to my seat before the start of the first game, but you could hear the fans chanting. The English fans, they're brilliant. Even before I was in Las Vegas, I was in Los Angeles, California, and seeing at Disneyland, Universal Studios, and so on, and we're seeing NRL fans sprinkled throughout those areas as well. So it was you just felt part of something. Certainly the rugby league community was everyone's friendly. The interactions are positive, even though you're not supporting the same team. But the highlight for me was the Fan Fest. And some of you may have seen that on your TV screens.
Yep.
Now, I wasn't at the pointy end. I didn't see the stage or any of the stuff that was going on up there. But the players, after they left the stage, I think they walked down a red carpet. I'd love to have been up the front there, but and then they continued. They sort of stopped them, and then. As the next team, I guess, went up on the stage, they let the previous team go along. So they came past where I was standing, every team, and they were just, you could see the players themselves were just having a great time. Mm-hmm. Their interactions with the crowd were great. They were very friendly. People from, different parts of the world wearing different jerseys. Everyone was it was a party. It was a big night. And that was the highlight of, I guess, well, the highlight for me with the Panthers winning. But from a purely fan point of view, the Fan Fest, and they estimated the crowd there to be about 10,000 people. And I wouldn't dispute that. There were people everywhere in in all sorts of jerseys. Obviously, the main ones were the teams that were playing, but there were fans from other clubs there as well, and other clubs in the UK, not just Wigan and Warrington. But I had, I met Peter Volandis. Got to shake his hand, have a photo with the big guy. On the way home, I met some Joel Kane from SEN.
I've met Joel Kane.
He's a
He's
great
an
bloke.
Absolute champion.
He
I
is.
met Joel Kane at the women's Origin, like one of the first ones at North Sydney Oval. My girls were only little. And I said good day to him, and he stopped and wanted to chat, and we, in the end, you're sort of
guy.
going, like he loved talking to the girls and talking about rugby league.
Yep.
He's one of the nicest guys you could meet.
He's fantastic. I listened to his program on the way home from work. I then, that was on the flight from Vegas to San Francisco. And then while waiting at San Francisco for the flight home, I was in a little Vietnamese place in the airport having a meal with my daughter. And the guy he came in sitting sort of next to us. And I didn't recognize, I wasn't sure who it was at first. But then just, said, "Oh, where are you from?" And he said, "Brisbane." I could see then, she sort of lifted her head up a bit. I said, "Todd." It was Todd Kearney. And he was absolutely the nicest guy. We had a chat for literally over half an hour about, what he's up to now and footy in general. It's just a great guy. And then just about to get on the plane on the way home, and I met Fletch and Hindy as well. So, it was good from that perspective, but just all in all, a fabulous time for rugby league. Obviously, the downside was that 3 of the games were basically pretty poor because 3 teams were ordinary. But
I was really the one game that, because you guys know what I think of and how I follow the British Super League. I was absolutely pumped for that game. I thought it was going to be one of the closest games. You had the Warriors at the start of the year being beaten by Lee 1-0.
Yep.
You had that. You had Warrington who were at that stage undefeated, who were playing some fantastic football. If ever you saw a team not show up, that's in the dictionary, if you saw the definition of not showing up, you'd have them, because that was they were really out of their depth for that first 20 minutes, and they came back.
They bombed about 3 or 4 tries. They got kick happy when they had an overlap.
Yeah, it's funny. I listened to some interviews, and I listened to some British commentary post game, and I think Sam said they just got overawed by it was like they felt like they had to show America the most razzle dazzle football, where all America really want to see is a team being competitive. And he said definitely if they could have gone to sleep and woken up again, the game would have been vastly different. And I fully believe that. It does look like the Gillaroos women's game might be the one that's cut for next year.
Well, you can't have that game, man. That was a mismatch.
That was something that just wasn't.
I think. Look, obviously we want to promote women's rugby league, but that had it going the other way.
I agree.
The crowd was pumped for the first game. And then as it built even further, and obviously would have been at its highest during the Raiders Warriors game. That's the Canberra Raiders and the New Zealand Warriors. The atmosphere was great, and particularly the English fans were still very pumped. The Wigan guys that was, and they were sitting with the Raiders fan base.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of noise coming from that end of the ground, and there were actually, in terms of fans, there would have been more Warriors fans, that's New Zealand Warriors, than any other club. There were huge numbers who had came from New Zealand, but also I'd say a lot of those Warriors fans were Australian residents as well. But they were there in big numbers, and their team was a massive disappointment.
Well,
they were awful.
I was not surprised. I was not surprised. Incidentally, the other thing where we've let our fans down in not being able to produce a podcast last week, I got a full round.
I was going to mention that. I know. So for those of you who are involved in the tipping on the Carpool Rugby-League tipping comp, I was going to mention that my friend Shane, he has not led the comp for
a number of years. It's been a while.
Or any comp.
It's been a long time.
What I will tell you, for those who don't know, a little bit of history. This guy, when he is in front early in the season, he does not get run down. Now, that's some bad news there for tipsters, because he tipped the round, he got an extra 2 bonus points. So he's got quite a lead early, and I've never seen the guy run down.
Yeah, that got me over. But yeah, I think that I think it's yet again another advertisement as to why the NRL needs to be there. Last year, there was a lot of commentary as to whether we pursue this. None of that this year. Everything this year is, when are we going back? The NRL have committed to having an office over there, so that basically someone's in Las Vegas on the ground doing the work. I think it's so good, and that party atmosphere. Next year you're going to have people from America wanting to go see it. And Volandis said this is a slow thing, and I think that it's producing dividends. I think. Look,
I will recommend, even if your team's not playing, that you're gonna have a good time. But it does, add so much more when your team is playing.
Yeah.
And if you have the opportunity, when it comes up in the future, that if your team is involved in Las Vegas, if you can get there, I highly recommend that you do. It's just unbelievable, the vibe that exists around that whole few days there. Everyone is there enjoying themselves. I did not see a dispute between any supporters. I can't say that didn't happen. I just didn't see it. But people were just having a good time.
Yep.
And I was disappointed that what was building within the ground, a very, very good atmosphere. It just dissipated as each game of those, the first game was a landslide. The second game, it was all Raiders. The Warriors, they were very poor. And I also tipped the Raiders, but I before a ball was kicked, I had the Warriors in the bottom 4.
They're my spoon. They're still my spoon.
Yeah, I'm there as well. They've got 1 or 2 contenders, but if I was naming a spoon, it's going to those guys. They've got to change some aspects of their team, but we'll get to that later. Then, the Gillaroos, we know they are highly talented professional sports players. And their opposition, they were doing their best. They're just not at the same level physically as the seasoned professionals that the Gillaroos are.
Can I at the time, I don't know if I brought it up on the podcast, maybe you did. I questioned why New Zealand wasn't the team.
Yeah, I don't understand.
As a spectacle, I thought, okay, I get you taking an English team over. You're taking the English competition over.
Yeah.
I didn't really understand why. I didn't understand why the English women's team was going. I thought, well, surely you'd bring the New Zealand female team. They would give the best. They would give the best opposition. And I remember at the time, I don't know if we talked about it in the podcast. I definitely spoke to people about it, and was definitely asked about it. And I said my strong recommendation would have been for New Zealand, not England, because, the game in England is still very much at the amateur level.
Yeah,
and that's no disrespect.
Look, and obviously they were trying to think, okay, this is going to help develop that game, but it didn't really.
No, and there's not the money over there, or in rugby league. There's a lot of money in sport over there, but there's not the money in rugby league to throw at it
at this stage.
No,
at this stage.
No,
but look, the air was really sucked out of the balloon. It was already leaking badly with the two first games as far as atmosphere goes, because they were one-sided, and that was a landslide. And by the time the Sharks and the Panthers hit the field, I'd say, about a quarter of the crowd had already gone home.
Tell you what,
maybe more. And by the end of and look, the Panthers and the Sharks put on a great game of rugby league. And it was a sad for the NRL themselves that the premier game was watched only by a small audience in the United States on TV, because it was the Warriors and the Raiders that went free to air, and nearly 400,000 people watched.
Yeah, you know what? The only thing I said, which was the saving grace for the NRL, there were a lot of blowouts this weekend. Like when you look at the results this weekend, there were only probably a couple of close games. But I really enjoyed the Panthers Sharks game. I thought it was really good. We'll talk about that in a minute. I know you've just spoken how good Vegas was. Is that your grab, Griffo, or have you got something else for Griffo's grab?
The grab. My grab from the Vegas round would have been Liam Martin.
Awesome.
Who was
awesome.
He was
absolutely awesome.
A search and destroy mission. I noted with interest that the Dally M Awards came out for round one. He got 1 point. So one judge gave him a point, and the other judge gave him nothing. Now,
look,
I thought he was the man of the match.
We could have another 3-hour podcast on the dodginess of the Daily M, and we've talked about it ad nauseum. But yeah, it just goes to show they have no idea.
Well,
they have no idea.
Some of them have an idea, but the problem is that they don't get the best necessarily at the end of the year. I don't care if they don't have votes. If you just keep it behind closed doors.
Who got the 3 points in that game?
Sorry, mate?
Who got the 3 points in that game?
Well, Cleary did from one of the judges because he had 5. I didn't have him in my top 3, to be honest.
Really?
I thought he had a really
good
game.
He had a good game. He was solid. I don't know if he... Let's face it.
I thought Liam Martin...
Liam Martin doesn't play. Liam Martin doesn't play.
Isaiah Yeo got 3 points, I think. So he might have got the 3 points from the
here's
other
my pick for
judge.
Dale M this year. I tell you now, watching that game, no disrespect to anyone else on the field, Liam Martin doesn't play. I don't know if the Panthers win.
Yeah, it's possible. It was a close game. I mean,
it was very close. It was a very close game.
Sharks, unfortunately for them, almost every time they let the Panthers get down to their line, they conceded. And some of it was like, Ronaldo had a brain snap, gave away a penalty with the ball.
Well, this might be a good opportunity to talk about that game. Penrith 28 beat the Sharks 22. In what was I thought a very entertaining game. Across the NRL during the week, I know there was a few blowouts. I know the Broncos played well and Manly. In my belief, the way that the Sharks played, and to be fair, they scored 22 against Penrith, which is a good effort. I think they were the best of the losers, and
no doubt.
Not only that, they would have beaten most of the winners.
For sure.
Everyone who won on the weekend, they would have, playing the way they did.
Yeah.
Probably the Broncos was the only other team they wouldn't have beaten, but I think they would have beaten every other team. I thought they were very good. I thought they were very good.
But Sharks, they're top four for me. But they came up against. It was a heavyweight game, that one. Someone had to lose.
Well, the thing is, we've always been critical of the Sharks in their attack.
Yeah. And I think with Fanua Blake there, he's the guy that might elevate them. Might.
Yeah, they've definitely taken their attack to another level.
Yeah,
it was last year their defense.
Some good tries.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, but from the weekend just passed, look, there were so many things that caught my eye. It's hard to come up with. Well, every time I thought I had one, I had to reconsider. I thought, and I only saw the first half of the game that Payne Haas. He was phenomenal.
Very good.
Against the Roosters, I think it was.
Yep.
And then Turbo was amazing.
Turbo had a day out, didn't he?
The Melbourne Storm, they absolutely blitzed what must be said was poor opposition, but you can only play as well as you can play. So they look sharp, the Storm. There are a handful of really good sides in this competition.
Yep.
And then there's some decent sides, and then there's the rest. I think there's probably only a few teams that can win it, and that's not necessarily different to any other year. But I think there's going to be some variations in some of the teams that we see in the final series this year.
Yeah, I think so.
And there usually is, but I think we might see some of the teams we've known and expected to be up there might not be anymore.
Yeah, look, Raiders.
But yeah, Payne Haas and Liam Martin.
I think that's very fair. I thought they were fantastic. I suppose just quick to mention, Dylan Brown, what looks to be $13 million over 10 years, signed by the Knights. Very, I'm going to say interesting because I can't think of another word, signing. I always question when a club signs someone for a long time, the purpose, the reason, and the longevity, and I question that again. Whenever you sign a guy for 10 years and he's going to be 34 when he finishes, I argue in relative terms, his last 2 years could be at, it's not going to be salary cap wise, but it's going to be at 300,000, and then he's going to go from there which means that the next few years, effectively, he's getting paid $2 million, a $2 million job. I don't think he can actually deliver that as a $2 million job. So I look, it's going to be interesting. Watch this space. Yeah, when I heard that he was offered big money, I was thinking, who the hell could this be? When I heard it was the Knights, I went, wow, the Knights. I This is a club that were in financial turmoil not that long ago, and they're throwing 10-year contracts around. I think this is where we really need a due diligence committee with the NRL to say, A, are you serious? And B, do you think this is worth it? Look, am I being too harsh here, Griff?
I don't think so. It's there's two clubs involved here that have got some issues, both of them. The Parramatta Eels, it's their own fault, really, for their past decisions to just let all these guys sign them and give them a clause and so on. Well, it's bitten them in the rear end, let's say, because not just because they've lost Brown. Now, I don't think Brown is worth that much money, but that's not the point. Someone wanted to pay him that much, so he is. What the problem has been by the contract that existed was that the guys underneath him, and they had some rising stars through the junior years in Blaise Talangi, who plays in the same position essentially, at number 6, and the number 7, the Colonel, Ethan Sanders, who went to the Raiders. So the two guys that could have slotted in and been a long-term number 6 at the Eels are no longer there.
Can I add to that, Griff? I think that the Eels, and look, I'm not having a crack at Riles. He's had how many? He's had one game.
It's not his fault.
The thing that bothers me is that you've let go of Clint Gutherson, and there's a small part of me that says that guy may have been the glue that held a lot of things together. Once that sort of goes, and I go for a club where that happened. When Adam Reynolds left South Sydney, you saw a lot of unravelling occur, especially with people leaving. I think that this is going to be the Eels for the next 3 years. You've got Jason Riles who got given a job. Jason Riles is going to have to deal with a turnstile of players for the next 3 years before he is even allowed to build a team and create what he wants to create. Look, for Jason Riles, that's one thing. For long-suffering Parramatta fans, that's mismanagement at the highest level. Well,
it was always going to bite him. We knew that, and that's what's happened. I mean, on the upside, Moses did take the clauses out. He's signed up to
to be fair,
a few years, but and the club has come out and they have now said we will no longer sign players with clauses in their favor. So you got to give credit there. They've changed that policy for the future. What it means for the next few years is they're going to be pretty lean, one would think. However,
and they're going to be hamstrung.
Well, they're going to have plenty of cash to splash. And I think there'll be a few concerned people at the West Tigers because they have Lachlan Galvin, who I think is signed for this year and next year, but is available after that. Now, they'll have plenty of money. And he was originally an Eagles junior Galvin. Also, Jerome Luai, he's got a clause in his contract. After 2 years, he can get out. So they will be in a position to sign a premium talent, Harf. But the problem is that's not going to be for a couple of years that they'll be able to sign either of those guys. Look, after what I saw on Sunday, I know Moses wasn't there, but they got some problems, the Eels, and that's not a surprise. It was only one game, but I don't think they're going to threaten the top 8.
No,
I think they're a big threat at the other end.
Well, let's go through the weekend's games. We had, of course, in Vegas, 30-8. Raiders beat the Warriors. 28-22, Panthers beat the Sharks. On Thursday, Broncos put 50 on the Roosters, 50 points to 14. West Tigers were ahead for a long time. Were very, very brave in a 10-8 loss.
I don't know about that, Shane. I thought they should have won that game.
They should have, but they'd usually lose that game 38-8. So I'm giving them a chance.
Sorry.
Usually they'd lose that 38-8. So to lose
I thought they should have won that game.
Look,
the Knights were awful. They couldn't.
They weren't great. The biggest problem you have with the Tigers is they just look like a bunch of people who met each other for the first time. And I think to lose a game, and against an opposition who is awful, don't get me wrong, but to lose that by 2, my apologies, and you're against Colin only have 10 in it, and you're the Tigers, there's some small wins there. Like, we've got to look at the Tigers as what they've done before, and they would have been smashed.
I think Shane themselves, they would be.
Oh, of course they would be, but
because they had that game at 8-0 at halftime, and I don't know how they lost it. Really, they had plenty of ball in the second half.
To be fair, I remember when definitely when South Sydney was in this position. I remember when Panthers were in these positions. I remember when, the Broncos, the Roosters, when they were building within this position. You lose these games, and you get so frustrated. I think what happens in the background is the Fords will get absolutely roasted, and they'll get told you have to start doing this. These are the games you have to lose to win 2 down the track. I saw the Panthers go through it years ago. I saw South go through it years ago. I saw the Storm go through it in their rebuilding stage. I saw all the teams when they're trying to do something. Should they have won? Yeah, of course they should have won. But it's how they then go forward next week, and if they learn from it. If they get
That's
smashed,
the key, Shane.
If they
have to win this week.
If they get smashed in the next 2 or 3 weeks, you go, well, you didn't learn. And then it's
not even smash. They have to learn how to win.
Just business as usual.
They are playing the Eels this week, and we'll talk about that later.
That's very true.
They have to win.
They have to win.
Simple. They have to win.
South Sydney beat the Dolphins 16-14 in what was a very interesting game.
I was thinking of you during that game and how proud you and also Graham would have been with it.
Could you believe it? Could you believe it?
Because they were gone.
I was at Race of Champions. I was in Acor watching the car races.
You didn't see it.
So I wasn't watching it. I'm like, I don't want to watch it. I don't want to see it. And when Colin Matungi's try got disallowed with the strip, my phone just lit up. Like, how can this? And I'm like, oh, far out. I'm not even going to look. The thing of and I suppose if there's one thing I want to say is this: referees And we saw it creeping into the NRL at the end of last year, from about round 20, maybe slightly earlier. If you go to the try line, make a decision. If it's no try, if you thought it was a genuine strip, call penalty. If you're rolling to the try line, you're okaying everything that happens from there on in. Award the try. We're now seeing, and I saw it last year, and we talked about it briefly. We have a problem in the NRL where the bunker thinks it's got to back up the referee. I had people who weren't South fans going, South were robbed. So I'm thinking South had lost. They're like, oh, South have been robbed. And I'm like, oh, fuck, we've lost. All right, don't worry about it. I was going to go home and watch it, but no, thank you, social media. You've just ruined it for me. And then it wasn't until I thought, oh, I'll watch it. And then South Sydney won in the end. I was very proud of them and what they did. But really, they
were outstanding.
We've got to think.
I'm not saying they're outstanding performance.
No,
their outstanding effort.
The effort was brilliant,
and that's been lacking for at certain times.
It was Wayne Bennett. That's a coach's win. We wouldn't have won that without Wayne Bennett.
It was effort.
Jeez, NRL. Can you just tell your referees that on halfway, I would love to know whether that would have been called a strip or a knock on. And this is our problem. And we brought it up last year, and I'm going to finish it by saying this. The genuine consistency in the NRL, not only in its calls, but where the calls are on the field and the timing of those calls needs to be improved. And we brought it up last year, and it just seems to be happening again. I was very happy with South Sydney, and I thought they played. I thought they were very brave. They're going to have to be braver this week. But yeah, that was just something I thought about, and I thought, geez, I wouldn't want to be a team like. Well, why I'm so frustrated with this is we see many teams miss out on the 8 by 2 points. If your team got dudded a call like that, and then fast forward to the end of the year and miss the 8, or miss the 4, which is just as important, if not more so, that's just a really tough thing. Dragons 20, Dogs 28 in one of the most bizarre games of rugby league I've ever seen. Seagulls 42, Cowboys 12. Put a line through the Cowboys, people. They are in trouble. And 56 points to the Storm, 8 to the Eels. The Titans did have the bye.
Just for Eels supporters, I think there was a 1 in front of that 8.
Oh, did I say 8? Did I say 8? 18, sorry. It was 18.
It almost makes it sound reasonable, but
18. Yes, 18.
It was over a point a minute, I think, in the first half to the Storm.
It was nuts. Let's talk about this week, because I reckon there's some interesting games coming up. On Thursday, tomorrow night, 8:00, we have the Newcastle Knights taking on the Dolphins. I call them the Redcliffe Dolphins.
We all know where they're from. That's what they should be.
Look,
one day they'll change it.
I think the Dolphins were doing a lot from last week. The Hammer played well. Asako, again. My biggest problem with the Dolphins in watching them last week is that their outside backs can do some very good work. It's when their forwards don't go forward and their halves don't really direct the play. They get caught on their 40-metre line and they do this half-decent kick down the field, but then no one I thought the Dolphins last week really, it was like set by set. They'd have this set of 6 which was absolutely outstanding, and you'd go, wow. The other thing with the Dolphins, and the other one wasn't so good, the other thing with the Dolphins is their tries were more capitalising on errors then constructing them from their their own field position. I don't really felt that the Dolphins got any field position. On the other hand, this game is built for people like Kalen Ponga. Being able to run from the back, Bradman Best on the fringes. They've got a good forward pack. I tend to like their forward pack a bit more than the Dolphins. Their bench, the same. I've got Newcastle at home. Griffo, what's your choice this week?
Yeah, well, I thought the Dolphins would win last week, and they got into a position to do that. And then they got a little lucky with the captain's challenge, where it was going to be a Rabbitohs penalty, but they got a scrum feed out of it. Then they had the winger feed the scrum, and they lost the ball trying to get it out the back line. And from that point on, they were gone. They didn't know what they were doing. They've got guys like the Hammer, Farnworth, Avarillo, and they just couldn't get him into positions to score enough points. I thought they were disappointing. Out of that team from last week, they lose two key forwards in Connolly Lemuelu and Kuli Kefu Finafuiaki. They're big losses, and that's the reason why I'm tipping the Newcastle Knights. Although I don't rate the Knights, I thought, I will give them credit. They got the 2 points last week, and their first half, they couldn't hold the ball. But they did enough to win. So that's going to give them some confidence. They bring in Adam Elliott, who missed last week's game. So I think at home, I would expect Newcastle, I don't know how to say that.
Castle.
The Knights. I expect them to win. I'll not be surprised if they don't, because they're that sort of team.
Yeah.
There's obviously there's no Dylan Brown yet, but they got a lot of good players there. You go through their side. Obviously, Ponga is the key.
Look, I question whether either of these sides are a top 8 team.
No, I don't think
they are. But you know what? You're going to have if you want to prove that you're half a chance, this is the game to have a good showing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
I mean, it could really, the Knights could be 2-0, and should be. I'm going to stick with them.
At 6 o'clock on Friday, we have the Warriors of New Zealand taking on the Seagulls from Manly Warringah. The out for the Seagulls, the key out, the only outs are Takiaho. Aloi is in for the Seagulls.
Asheole, that's the guy.
Asheole, yeah.
Asheole.
That was funny, wasn't it? Look, I suppose the key ends for Warriors are all on the bench. Afoa Kosi, Keely and Tamari Martin. Look, the Warriors, the way they played last week, they are a rudderless ship at the moment. I think they're struggling just to get any go forward. I really think their interchange would not get a run in any, and I don't mean any disrespect by this, but this is where the teams are at. Their interchange would not get a run in most NRL clubs, and in a lot of NRL clubs would not be in the top 30. That's where they're at, the Warriors. So they're putting people on the field, not necessarily because of injury, but because of our necessity. That's what they've got. That their troops on the field just don't have the they just don't have the skill. You've got the Seagulls on the other hand, who played very well last night. Luke Brooks and Cherry Evans, they're really setting the platform. Tom Dvojevic, outstanding please don't get injured for a state of origin. Just wrap him up in steel wool if you could. Can I shout out to Jazz Tabunga? I think he is just playing some great football. Aloi, he'll be at the prop. Olakawatu and Benjarovic with the Jake Kind locking. It's a very formidable team. This is a team that's taken a few years to build, and looking at them, and I know games aren't one on paper, but on paper they're very formidable. I've got the Seagulls, Griffo. I don't know if this is my dead cert, but geez, they're going to win. I think they're going to win well.
Well, I do agree with you on that I think they win and win well. I'm going to talk not for long on the Warriors, but I don't understand, and I know a lot less than Webster, but I've got to think RTS, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, is wasted in the number 5 jersey and a much better attacking option than Nick Klocko-Scharenstadt, who wears that jersey, wore it last week, and you did say rudderless, and you're right.
I agree, and that's one of the reasons why I said it, because I just think that, you know what, I don't understand. Like, it's like the way I look at the Warriors, and I said it to someone last week when I saw their team. It's like owning a 1960s GT Falcon, right? And it's 1960s technology. It's a bit old, but it still cracks along. When you put the foot down, it'll crack along. And it's like buying a newer XL and chucking that in the race. It's not going to compete. And I'm not. That's no disrespect to Nickel Clockstad, but you're in a position where you are clutching at straws. You need the best person in your team to hold the ball that has the best opportunity. I think you know what? I think it's a joke that he's on the wing. If you're not going to put him at fullback, chuck him at centres or something where he's going to get early ball and he can use his size and power. Don't chuck him on the wing where he gets the dregs. It's ridiculous.
I think they played him in the centers already. That didn't really. He's a fullback. He's their best option.
I fully agree. But I think chucking him on the wing.
You know, the other guy who's also a good fullback is Tua Pickey.
Yeah.
And I think pretty sure he played fullback for the Kiwis last year and did a good job. Luke Metcalf, he's wearing the 7 jersey. I don't think he's a 7. He's a running 6, and a really good one at that. They need someone to sort of use that rudder. You said they were rudderless. They are. I don't know what's wrong with Tamari Martin. I think he might be a better option at 7 and the Metcalf at 6. You could use Chanel Harris-Tavita off the bench at 14 if you wanted, but I don't see a lot of success for this team, in 2025. I might be wrong, but I just can't see them getting anywhere near the top 8. If he continues, those players, I'm not saying drop the players, I'm just saying put them in the position where, because they really struggled in attack. They didn't look like scoring tries last week. But it's Manly, who were outstanding last week. They've got so many options in attack with Turbo, DCE, Luke Brooks. You've got the speed of Sab, Talatau, Kola, Lehigh Apawati, who was amazing in that try where he went up for the ball from a bomb. He did a 180, turned around and just popped the ball back. It might have been to Ben Trebojevic. I'm not sure on that, but Hapawati. And then you've got Hamoli Alakawatu, who is an absolute beast. I just can't wait to see this guy put on that blue jersey again this year with his teammate Tommy Turbo. We remember what happened in Game 3, where from the bench, Hamoli got involved when one or two Blues players, I think it was Brian Ta'o and Jerome Luai, had about 10 Maroons come at them. Hamoli will not have forgotten. This time he'll be on the field to do something about it. That guy, he's a weapon. It's all Manly for me.
I agree, Griff. This next game, Panthers versus the Roosters at 8 p.m. Can you believe it? Right, and we don't. I love it. Graham always cracks up when we say we don't condone betting on here. I don't condone betting. The Roosters, $9.30. When was the last time you ever saw the Roosters at that price? Well, when you got a key, Victor Radley's out after his head knock last week. And guess what? Just to add insult to injury to the Roosters, Brian To'o is in for the Penrith Panthers. Look, I can talk about. What do you talk about? You're gonna be able to give a far better synopsis on the Panthers than me. Can I just talk about the Roosters? The Roosters, they talked about Roosters youngsters and how many youngsters they have. That's somewhat true. My thing with the Roosters is at the moment is that, again, they're a bit like, when I talk about the Warriors as a rudderless ship, they really, how they moved around last week, how they moved around the field it was clunky. The scary thing for me with the Roosters was their forward pack could not get any purchase. It was like no matter what they did, they could not. They just couldn't get. They couldn't get into the grind. They, even the experienced players wanted to just pass the ball and not get hit, or wanted to, there was something about their play. Their defense was at times non-existent. Their middle, and you know what, their middle is like Connor Watson's in that middle. It's going to be a very, very, very big task for them this week. I know you'll talk extensively about the Panthers. You're the Panthers man, so I'm not going to get on that. But I will say this. I really think that this is a game absolutely built for people like Mitch Kenny, Isaiah Yeo in the middle, Leota to run up through the middle with Smith, Sorensen and Martin on the wings. I actually think it's been a long time since the Roosters had 50 put on them 2 weeks in a row. I reckon it's going to happen, Griff.
I don't think it will.
Oh, you're kind.
Well, the Panthers, they're not really a team that puts 50 on them all that often. They strangle teams, and I think they'll do a job on the Roosters, but I don't think it's going to be anything like the score against the Broncos last week. Obviously, you look at the teams, and it does seem, slanted towards the guys that, are playing at their new home ground at Combank. I'll get out there on Friday night. But I don't think it's going to be a huge score. And to be honest, I'm only after the 2 points. It would be nice to get a bit of, to put some, a bit of a gap between the opposition. That's always good long term for your ladder position if you can rack up a few. But I just want to talk about a big mistake the Roosters have made. Oh, they've made a few lately. They're not known for it, but over the offseason, we may have mentioned this already, but Terrell May was let go by the club. And it's not as though he'd done anything wrong. I thought that they had, they wanted to free up some money because they had someone coming in. Now, that might have been money to try and attract Ben Hunt. They missed out there. We saw that last week, Terrell May was the Tigers' best player. And if they really needed somewhere on that field last week, it was someone in the middle. And they let that guy go. So that was their mistake. But look, they've got a few really good players in this side, but not many. It's a 2-horse race. What I want to talk about quickly is at the 2 premier rugby league grounds in Sydney last week at Combank, where we saw this.
Rabbitohs played there last week.
Rabbitohs, that's right. And so not normal home ground, but the Rabbitohs played against the Dolphins.
They moved. So Rabbitohs accepted a home game for what's going on up north.
Yeah. And then but the night before, I think it was, when the Broncos played the Roosters at Allianz, both of those grounds chopped up badly.
Yeah, I agree. I can give absolutely no sympathy to Allianz because Allianz should have been prepared. Combank, and I'm just going to double check something before I
that should have been prepared as well.
Combank actually, so in moving the game, so when the game, and our thoughts go to those people in southeast Queensland, northern New South Wales, but when it looked like the game wasn't or could not go ahead regardless, South Sydney apparently reached out and said, "Look, we'll make it a home game for us. If we can get it into Sydney somehow, we can't be at Accor because of the Race of Champions. But if we could get it into Sydney somehow, we'll do that." Apparently, Combank were very reluctant to host a rugby league match because the grass and everything wasn't ready yet.
Right.
And they did a run on the field. They did a run on the field and everything appeared to be okay. Combank have come out since then and said we were forced into making a decision against our better judgment. We should have said no. Postponed the round for those two, and they played at another time, which would have been ultra inconvenient. So I can give a little bit of sympathy to the Combank team because I thought, like they knew they thought they had another week before rugby league. Yeah, I know they play football or soccer there, but rugby league's a different type of play, and they thought they had another week before that would have to happen. For Allianz, there is no excuse. That I know we had some rain, but gee whiz, that ground got chopped up very quickly.
I am a little concerned that how it's going to play out Friday night. I don't want to see any of my guys
don't see any injuries. No injuries
as a result of
I agree.
Surface.
I agree, and it's something that I got to be honest with you, Griff. I think the Combank Stadium ground will be fine. Personally,
I hope so.
Because
we haven't had great weather this week.
No, and the only problem is going to be is them accepting the South Sydney game, South Sydney Dragons game. Dolphins game. What that has done to the preparation, because of course, that would have been a week of no traffic. Routes get to go deeper. The grass gets to set. Combank came out during the week assuring teams that was okay. I thought that the ground was 50-50 last week, given the fact they would have had the lights on it 24/7. So they would have had, regardless of look, I'm going to go all nerdy here. The ambient
Well,
temperature
you know your grass.
the ambient temperature of Sydney has been in and around the 28, 30 degrees top, so that's fine. The only thing they'd need to aid with that is light. They would have had the lights going backwards and forwards over that day and night. The nighttime temperatures are still warm enough for that to take. I think we're going to see an okay. I'm not going to say decent. I'm not going to say that by any stretch of the imagination, but I think we're going to see a fair ground at CommBank for this game. I think looking at the temperatures, looking at the lights that would have gone on 24/7, they would have re-turfed areas rather than seeded. So a lot of this newer stuff would have been seeded. I actually think that the ground's going to be okay. I think it's going to be fine. Not brilliant, but okay.
All right. Well, that encourages me.
Yeah,
because I know you know about that side of stuff.
Yeah, I like. Provided they done everything I said, like if they've tried to cut corners and just relied on nature, then they're not going to get much more purchase than last week. Anyway.
All right.
On 3 p.m, I will be at this game at Wynn Stadium. The Dragons will be taking on the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Now my thing's just frozen, so sorry, people. So we've got the Dragons. We've got the Dragons taking on South Sydney. Dragons are favourites.
I can go through the changes.
No, that's all good. I've cracked it.
All right.
Jack Whiten, of course. I could do these ones off the top of my head, but I thought about not. Jack Whiten, of course, is out due to suspension. Tyrone Munro is out with a collarbone injury. He's 6 weeks on the sidelines. Big ins for the Dragons. Tyrell Sloan is in. Where that puts him, I don't know if he's going to stay there.
He was there last week.
Yeah, he didn't. Yeah. I'm wondering whether that's going to be in there. I'm hearing some mail that Molo might come into the side. So that's going to be another interesting thing. I suppose the only other one who is in there is Blake Lowry, is on the interchange bench. All right. Well, this could actually. Fletcher Myers is in centres. Isaiah Tass is on the wing for South Sydney. Campbell Graham had a cracking game last week. That was his first game from 500 days off. If that's the way he's going to play after 500 games off, I want to see 5 games in just how good he's going to be. Bailey Bentley Harper is in on the wing. Some insider goals that apparently South Sydney were talking with Ravalawa today.
I was going to bring that up.
Ravalawa, wow, I don't know. We've got enough players that can miss tackles and drop the ball.
I was going to say, he's one of your ultimate rocks or diamonds guys, Ravalawa.
Can I just add, like, number 22, Talanoa Penatani, plays in South Sydney's New South Wales Cup side. I actually thought that he might get the nod. Hasn't, but put on the reserve bench. So it's interesting that maybe Wayne's saying, well, come on, mate, you can do things. Lachlan Hubner in at lock.
He was great.
He was great last week. Keon Kolomatangi was phenomenal in the way he went forward. Look, I can tell you ways in which. Look, I'm going to pick the South Sydney Rabbitohs. I think that actual fact their forward pack is what's going to win it for them. I think Keon Kolomatangi, Jai Arrow, Lachlan Hubner, with people like Tallis Duncan and Tavita Totola coming off the bench, I think they're going to get some really good go forward. One of the guys I was super impressed with is Jamie Humphries. He's a young man who's a defensive halfback. Many sets of sixes, happen to make 3 tackles. His kicking game is fairly good. The guy who needs to just support him is Cody Walker. Cody Walker needs to just take control of this team, steer them around the park. and Campbell Graham on the fringes. Jai Gray made well over 200 metres last week, and every time that guy plays, he makes 200 metres. So I think that they've got, with Jack White now, I'm worried, but I think against the Dragons, they do have the strike power. Can I just say, Clint Gutherson is just someone who's, just phenomenal. I didn't see a lot from Val Holmes last week to make me think that there was anything that the Dragons could write home about. But same thing with their halves. Damien Cook was very brave. I thought the Dragons forward pack last week played well. It's going to be a mammoth effort from South Sydney to back this up. They've got the coach to do it. Sean Kepi is probably on borrowed time. I think at times last week he put South Sydney under some pressure. Jaden Sewer and Jack DeBellin last week was solid for the Dragons. I'm why I'm picking South Sydney, but I genuinely think, being at Win on the weekend and watching South Sydney play, I'm actually thinking South Sydney can win. So that's my synopsis on this.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, one team won last week, the other team lost, and the team that lost last week are the favorites.
Can I just say, the Dragons lost at home to a sellout crowd.
I know. It wouldn't have been like 80-20. It would have been closer to 60-40. But
they were behind by they had to come back for that win, for that loss.
Yeah, I think the Bulldogs, I had got the Bulldogs in my 8, but I don't have either of these teams in my 8
at the moment,
and that doesn't mean they won't get there. I didn't expect the Dragons would win last week. I have tipped them this week, but no confidence. I just think for them, it's really important that they do win this game, particularly given that they lost at home last week. They're at home again, different home, down in Wollongong. But I thought Souths were, very, very brave last week. They won on effort.
Which is something you haven't said. I can't say that about South in the last 12 to 18 months.
I think the effort will be there. I just think the Dragons probably have enough. They get that power game on.
Yeah, I agree.
And that can win them games.
Yep.
But we've seen in the past they've looked fantastic for half a game and still lost. They're that sort of team. But I do think they will win in Wollongong this week.
Well, at 5:30 on Saturday, we have the Cowboys from North Queensland taking on the Cronulla Sharks. I should say Cronulla Sutherland Sharks. Look, not many changes in the two sides. Looking at them, I found that last week the Cowboys really struggled to get any momentum forward, and even then, when they did, they really didn't know what to do with it. They really struggled. I actually thought with the Cowboys, you can talk about their go forward and attack and whatnot. Their defense was horrible. Reuben Cotter and Reece Robson. These are people that in the past we've talked very highly of. They just got stripped through the middle, and that just allowed for the wingers to do whatever. The 3 quarters to do whatever they wanted. Their forward pack couldn't lay a foundation. In defence, their forward pack struggled to contain the Seagulls. The Sharks, on the other hand, I thought they were the best of the losers, and I thought they'd probably beat any other side that won during the week. I thought they were very good. They did bomb a few things. There are a few people who, if they had their time again, they would have done things differently. You guys know I'm a big fan of Will Kennedy. I really think at the back he does some great stuff. Kale Earl, I think he in the centres. Um, it's time for Trindle and Hines just to absolutely take this game by the scruff of the neck, and it's going to be on the back of their forward pack: Fanua, Blake, Browley, Kafusi, Nikora, Wilton, and Cameron McInnes, their captain. That's a cracking forward pack. They're going to get opportunity. The backs are going to get opportunity more often than not. I've got the Sharks, and I've got the Sharks winning this well, Griff.
Yeah, I can only echo those sentiments. I think the Sharks win this game and possibly quite well. You did mention not a lot of changes, and there are not, but there was one key change. Peyton has dropped the former Kangaroo player and Queensland State of Origin representative in Jeremiah Nanai, which he was making a statement saying, look, this performance is not good enough.
He's
and I had to do it.
He's been moved to 19. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. So he's put him on notice. I didn't have this team in my 8 either. I just think, they got a couple of good weapons there. Drinkwater. He's a quality player. But their best player is number 6, Dearden. Those two guys have to fire for them to be any chance, because I think apart from those two, they've got a lot of honest performers, but I don't think this team's going to be making the 8, and I certainly don't think they're winning this game.
No.
The Sharks, especially given that they lost that game in Las Vegas, they don't want to go 0-2. And neither do the Cowboys, but I just think the Sharks have got the better team.
Look, we've got Tom Alomo. He's named as a reserve, but really...
You mentioned earlier Dylan Brown, and the reason I bring this up...
he's the classic example of the 10-year...
10-year contract, and I think he's still got a few to go, and I don't understand why you... I think I do understand, the reason being they want to sign the player, but you're asking a guy in their mid-30s to be producing their best football in big money. It ain't going to happen. And we've seen it with Tom Malolo.
Lucky, he's a, and this is no disrespect, but he's a bargain basement player. That's the price he's commanding at the moment, which means at the front end of when you bought him, you're paying well over doubles. You're basically saying that this guy's worth $2 million, and it's just not. He's not worth that. No player's worth that. And you know what? It's the same reason why people. I really think that if you're going to sign someone to a long-term contract, there's a small part of me, and I said this when Jason Tomalomo got signed. It should be for unders. And people go, well, why should it be for unders? He's a premier player. He is locked into a club securely for 10 years. That's value for money. That the club should get value for that. That should not be about the club having to pay premium price at that time for 10 years. That should be, you know what? It's like when you buy in bulk. When you buy in bulk, you get the discount. If you're going to sign a player for 10 years, my number one line will be there's a discount in that. And you know what? Someone like Dylan Brown should have got signed for something, and JT at the time, should have got something signed for something like $800,000 a year.
But they wouldn't have taken it. That's the thing.
Well, then try your luck to see if you'd get on average $8 million over the next 10 years, because I guarantee you won't. It's about volume and value for money. And I think that a lot of clubs will start looking at this and go, I hope they look at it smarter, because I'm telling you now, the Cowboys have gotten one premiership in that time. Would that be
I
fair
think
to
they
say?
signed the 10-year. He signed the 10-year deal after
So
they
they've
won.
gotten no value out of that. I
Not
don't know the
not
Knights are
from
going to get much
on-field
more.
performance. No,
Yeah.
I mean
Anyway,
it's a mistake, and I don't see 10-year contracts as
I
being
think they're
a
yeah. I
good
think
thing. I think absolute
can
maximum
I say that
5 years.
can I say the only time I ever see a 10-year contract has been a good thing is if you've got a young junior that's playing good football, that's got the opportunity to upgrade with options. That's different. When you're signing someone from outside of your club for that length of time, I think it's suicide. But anyway, that's just me. 7:35 on Saturday, we have the Canberra Raiders taking on the Brisbane Broncos. This will take place at GIO Stadium in Canberra. Stuart Tarpany and Savage, they're out. Okay, so I suppose some potential ins for, or the biggest potential in as I can see is Marty Tapau, named for the
He won't play.
he won't
They're
play,
going to
but
run with the same 7.
that's about the only potential in of all of them, of everyone that might be half a chance, and everyone else is seriously, they're just making up the numbers. Okay, so what we have is we've got a side in the Raiders who played well last week, to be fair. Did a lot of things well, Sebastian, Chris. They scored tries in doubles. Chris and Strange, I think, got 2 each from memory. Chris definitely. They're
I think
up against.
he might have been the first scorer for the year. Chris.
Yes, Sebastian Chris. Up against a side in the Broncos who's playing some phenomenal football. Look fit. Felt for. I didn't actually. That's a lie. I didn't feel for Kevy during the week. Very damning admission by Reece Walsh during the week that basically this off season was the first off season which actually felt like they'd trained. So
I didn't hear that.
Yeah, that was by Reece Walsh. So Kevy basically told he didn't train him. I thought they were brilliant last week. Can I just add some value to the Raiders? If you're thinking that look, they're at 435, Broncos at 122. If you're a Raiders fan, what can you take home? I really think that their outside backs is where there's some value, where you can sort of get early ball out there and get. It's not that they're going to score; it's about getting meters and putting Broncos under pressure. The Broncos at the moment can score from anywhere. They've got Ben Hunt at 5'8", Adam Reynolds at halfback, Pat Carrigan in at the prop with Kobe Hetherington playing lock. That's really interesting. I think that's just about getting meters and making sure that everything in the middle shored up defensively, and that's what they did last week. Look, I've got the Broncos winning this. I think their middle's just going to be too good defensively. I think Morgan Smithies and Tom Starling are very good. Josh Papali'i and Corey Horsburgh are going to have to be on their game. Hudson Young and Hoskins out wide. Look, I actually, I always look forward to my team playing and living in the mountains watching Penrith. I'm actually looking forward to this game. I think this is going to be closer than what the pundits think, but I think the Broncos are going to get over it in the end.
Shane, I saw Joe Tapani, have a brain stamp.
Yes.
Put a shoulder charge on.
Yes.
And I thought, why did he do that? I think he was asking the same thing himself because he's missing this game.
He's a massive loss from this game.
And he's arguably, some say he's the best front rower in the game. Now, On the flip side, the Broncos probably have got the best front rower in the game in Payne Haas. If Tapani was playing, and also they lost Savage as well, and he was pretty much man of the match, I think. Certainly when I looked at the Dally M's, and he had a great game, Savage. So two of their best men in green are not being seen, which I think is unfortunate because from what I saw from the Raiders, they're gonna do better than some people had them as Spooners this year.
Would never have him as a Spoon. I
didn't have him in my 8, but
no, I'm the same.
I think they can make it. I think there's a couple of spots at the bottom of the 8, and we'll run through that before we sign off tonight, just for the record. Not that it's going to work out that way, but I'll stick with what I had before I saw a game. So I didn't have the Raiders in, but I think they're a chance, and I would have seriously thought about tipping them in Canberra this week, but not without Tarpany and Savage. So I got to stick with the Broncos here. I don't think it's going to be a walk in the pack like they had against the Roosters. I'm not convinced that the team that the Broncos are trotting out is the best team. Like they're going to threaten, but guys like Gajewski, Shibasaki, I don't think they're going to be running around in the premiers. I know they've got Piakura would have been expected to be a starter, but Gajewski was good against the Roosters, so he keeps his spot. But I've also got a question. Yeah, Hunt and Reynolds did well against the Roosters, but I don't know about, both those guys are around 35 years of age.
Had very little pressure put on them too, by the way.
Exactly. I know they still got the MAM to come back later, but while I do believe the Broncos will be up there, I'm not convinced that they're going to win this competition. I think still, for mine, the Melbourne Storm look like the favorites, but I do think the Broncos will get the 2 points this week.
Yeah. So on Sunday, 16th of March at 4:05 at Combank Stadium, second game being played there this week, we have the Parramatta Eels taking on the West Tigers. I suppose Jake Tago, Talangi and Militani are out for the Eels. The big in, or there's a couple of big ins really, for the Tigers. We have Apasai Coruscant. He has been named for the Tigers. We also have Charlie Staines, who has also been named. Jareem Buller, he has taken his place at fullback. So that's they're three massive ins for the Tigers. They didn't have them last week. This week, that would definitely make this team a more formidable opponent. I just looked at the Tigers last week, and we've called them somewhat of a rudderless ship. They actually looked like they had purpose last week. They looked like they had some sort of structure. Definitely in the halves, like Jerome Luai has made an absolute difference to this side. Lockie Galvin, can I be a little bit critical of him? I thought that last week he went right into his shell. If he's going to do this because he's outside Jerome Luai, someone needs to give him a massive tap on the shoulder and say, please don't do that. Because last year he was throwing these great long balls to the centres and the three quarters, and he really went into his shell. I think we need to see Lockie Galvin this week just open back up and do what Lockie Galvin does. I thought he played within himself. He just needs to open up. Zach Lomax in at centres. Why? He's the best. He's the best kicker under the high ball. He's not going to catch anything from anyone. Mind you, their halves probably Volkman and Brown won't deliver it, but let's face it, the wider you are, the better. I don't think he's that much of a potent runner to warrant that, but that's where he's at. I've got the Tigers winning this one. It's going to be one of them strange games you're going to watch. Majority of Formula One fans will be watching this on KO via replay, but I think what you're going to find is that the forward pack are going to cancel each other out, and it's going to be the backs for the Tigers that win this game. I don't think this game's going to be... I think this game's actually going to be close, but the Tigers, I think, will get their first win of the season.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on that one. The last time these two teams played in the NRL, it was Spoon Bowl. Wasn't that long ago.
Wasn't that a good concept?
Well, it was great. It built up a hype for the bottom two teams on the ladder, and they had a packed house. I think it was at Campbelltown. I might be wrong on that, but
I always said like Spoon Bowl
blew them away.
I always said Spoon Bowl didn't sound right. We needed Soup Bowl, and they're winning the spoon.
All right, well that's fair enough.
I don't know if that works, but you know what I mean.
No, I know what you mean. I think Spoon Bowl's easier to sell, but I think, as you mentioned, two ends that are there's two ends that count, and the other one was just making up. And he's actually not even listed. Staines is the 18th man.
Yeah.
But Appy last week, I think Appy would have got him over the line.
Oh, 100%. Appy and Buller played, done.
Yeah. So this team becomes much more potent with those two guys, Buller at the back and Appy in the number 9. So they're going to be. They only got one try last week. I think they score a few this week against a defensive outfit that was poor in the Parramatta Eels. You can never bank on a Tigers win, but I do think if they lose this game against poor opposition, then we might be in for a lean year, because confidence will pretty much be shot after they lost last week, a game they should have won against a team that played dreadfully, couldn't get the job done at home. And now they play the Eels, who were pumped.
Can I say,
by the Storm?
If the Tigers lose this week, Benji's on notice. At round 2, 2025, Benji is on notice.
Yeah.
And he would have 8 games left to prove himself.
I don't know. I think they may as well say we just were a failure.
Yeah, I think.
But I don't think that. I think they're going to win here. I want to just bring something up that came up either yesterday or that might have been yesterday, and that is that former Panther Taylon May was found. Well, I don't know what he was found, but he was not guilty of whatever.
Found not guilty.
Not guilty because
they said that's not true.
The witnesses didn't turn up, they dropped the case.
They dropped the case, so it's not as if he wasn't actually found anything. They dropped the case against.
They just dropped the case,
and it looks like he's going to be signing for the Tigers.
That's what is expected. With Justin Olam sort of on looking at a medical retirement. Creates a spot and cash to get a guy who has stated that he wants to play with his brothers, If they do end up signing, and I expect will happen, obviously there's a little bit's got to go on before that, but he is a very good rugby league player.
Can I also
and that's all I'll comment on.
Can I also add something to that, Griffo? Is that because of his time out, so the NRL, and it's interesting, this is why Brandon Smith was thought to have been signed by the Bunnies, but hasn't as yet, because the NRL are having discussions about this. Taylor May can actually be signed on a train-on contract. So he doesn't have to be signed because he hasn't played football in a while. He doesn't have to be signed under a monetary contract that has to be of his value. So the Tigers can actually cash in here and sign him on a very, very cheap contract that basically allows them to grab a player of his caliber very cheaply. Again, there's the tainted goods
well, that's the thing.
But if you're willing to chance that, they're going to grab him for a very, very cheap price, providing they play it smart, which they're the Tigers, they may not. But if they play it smart, they could actually nab him very, very cheaply and for bargain basement price. So watch this space.
I mean, as I said, from a rugby league point of view, he would be very good for this team.
I agree.
And leave it at that.
Yeah, I agree. On Sunday, can I just say how good this is? 6:15 Sunday evening. We've got Sunday evening football. We've got a game. The Canterbury Bulldogs will take on the Titans that are North Queensland. Just shout out to North Queensland. If you haven't seen pictures of their training facilities, like the crossbars underwater. So shout out to them to be able to come here and train this week. They've had, and they've had a bye and they haven't been able to actually do anything during the bye because of the floods. So massive shout out to them. I suppose ins for the Broncos, most of them more or less pertain
the Bulldogs.
The Bulldogs. What am I doing? The Bulldogs. Most of them pertain to the bench, except for
I think there was only one.
Josh Curran is going to be in the interchange.
Comes off a suspension.
So he comes off a suspension. This is brand new territory for the Titans. They're just coming in. Keeney, Brian Kelly in at centres. We've got Jojo Fafita, AJ Brimson, and Jaden Campbell are there. Haas, we'll go through them a little bit because they didn't play last week. Sam Verrills in at hooker. Campbell Gillard and Fodawaka, they're the props. Khaleesi Haas, Bo Fairmore is in a second row. And Big Tino is back in lock. So that's a really, really good addition for them. That pushes David Fafita to the interchange bench at number 15. That's really interesting that they're going to bring him off the bench. Look, to be honest, when I look at the Titans side, I really look at them and go, it's okay. However, the Dogs, I find the Dogs team to be full of people who can really change games. I think it's time for Burton and the Sex Bomb to really make the halves their own. Their back line has superstars in it. I'm actually going to talk a bit more about their forward pack. Can I say I don't like the fact Kikau doesn't have his hairdo anymore. I can't see him on the field, but he is there. He played and he's playing some fantastic football. It's their forward pack for me, the Dogs this week, that has to win them the game. It's the Max Kings, the Reed Marnies, the Sulko Fafitas, the Kukows, the Prestons, and the Kurt Manns of the world that need to really tackle well and get on the front foot. The Dogs love spreading the ball wide and getting it to their second rowers early to get that punch. I think it's a good thing. I think that Josh Curran coming in off suspension, I think he will add some significant punch to the team. David Fafita on the bench for the Titans. That does one of two things for me. It says, well, they're going to have some punch off the bench. That's good, but it pretty much tells me where they think David Fafita is. I've got the Dogs winning this one. I think they're a more cohesive unit that just can play cohesive football, grind the game out, and do what they need to do. But it's going to be up to Matt Burton and Toby Sexton to absolutely use what their forwards have given them. If they spread it wide and the Crichtons, Sherrys, the Wilsons, the Montoyas of the world, along with the Connor Tracys, I didn't think Connor Tracy had a great game last week, but that's just me.
That is just you, Shane, because the Dally M people thought that he did. I don't know, but
he was up and down. Like I thought he was up and down at times. Like he actually stifled their attack about 3 times. He missed 2 tackles and made 2 errors, which actually, and look, he did some phenomenal things when he did them well, but you don't need to, don't do the other rubbish. Just do phenomenal things. But anyway, that's just me. They're just going to have to do it well. Stephen Crichton can thank his lucky stars he's there. After his tackle in the in goal where he went knees first, I thought he'd get a week and he didn't. I'll say it now. He should have gotten a week. For me, that's when you go in knees first with a guy scoring
or something like that.
No, fuck these fines.
I don't know. Yeah, I agree. He should have copped something.
That's
at
a
least
week.
A game.
That is a week in any.
Yeah, at least.
And you know what's even, he copped a fine and didn't get 10 in the bin. I understand not getting 10 in the bin. I don't agree with it, but I understand it. That's a week. If you're going in with the intention of hitting a player with your knees in the in goal, that's a week. It's reckless and it's
killing. Should have got 10 in the bin, even though they
I agree with you, Griff. My brother,
it's foul play.
It's foul play. It's reckless and it's careless. Regardless if it's a try or not, it deserves 10 in the bin. Had he tackled properly, the player would have scored. The 4 points was always going to happen. In which case, I say, if the 4 points is always going to happen, he needs to sit 10 minutes in the sideline. I thought it was abysmal. I think the fact he's playing this week.
The more I think about it, ridiculous. I agree when it's a professional foul that stops a try, but that was foul play.
That was foul play. You know what? You go in with the knees first, intentionally.
Yeah.
It should have been 10 in the bin. It's, in my opinion, it's reckless and careless. If it's reckless and careless, it's over the points exceeding 1 week. It's beyond a fine. And the fact that the NRL can in one game tell one person that they get a fine and 1 week, and yet in another game tell someone who's reckless and careless that they get nothing is so inconsistent, and this is why fans are pissed off. You got to get it right, the NRL, and if we have another minute talking about the judiciary, that would take hours of carpool rugby league commentary, because it just seems to be we always are talking about how the judiciary got it wrong. and he should have gotten a week, in my opinion. And we'll leave it at that. I've got the Dogs winning.
Yeah, I've got the Dogs winning as well because I see them as a consistent team that you can sort of rely on. Whereas I think the Gold Coast Titans, who on paper look very, very good, you can never sort of think, you can't bank on them and say, well, yeah, they're really going to play well this week and they're going to win this game. You just don't know. But I just had a look at my top 8 that I wrote down from my Las Vegas hotel before we were going to do our podcast that unfortunately we couldn't get happening. I've just noticed I had the Titans listed in my top 8. So I've got a lot more faith, or maybe it was really late that night and I made a mistake. But I'm just going to go through these, Shano, and you might, throw up the things.
You know what, Griffo? The one thing, so just to give carpool fans, I'm on another. I'm in another area tonight, and the one thing I didn't bring with me was my top 8. So I'm going to listen to yours, Griff.
All right.
And I know I gave my pluses and minuses and sort of alluded to the top 8 then, but let's have a listen.
All right. So I've got these in the position I think they finish on the ladder in the 26 rounds. I've got Storm at 1. This was done before last week's games were played. Panthers 2, Sharks 3, Broncos 4, Sea Eagles 5, Bulldogs 6, Titans 7, and I'm going to say I made a mistake, well, at least one, probably more. I had the Roosters at number 8.
Can I say I had the Roosters at 8 too? There's some differences I had. I had the Storm at 1. So Storm at 1 for me. I had the Roosters at 8 and Souths at 7.
Right.
Mind you, made that call before the injuries of.
Oh, okay, long ago.
So that would be when I made mine.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I did have Souths in there before the season started.
Definitely would change now.
And then I heard, Murray out for the year.
Yeah, definitely would change
out for
now.
6.
Definitely would change now. But I can't see anything wrong with a lot of what you've just said there, Griff.
There will be. I've never accurately got the 8. I don't think ever. I think the top 5 teams, and maybe even the Bulldogs, the top 6. I'm pretty confident.
Where did you have the Bulldogs, Griff?
I had them at 6.
Okay, I had them at 5. I know I definitely had the Bulldogs at 5.
Yeah,
So your top 4 are Storm, Brisbane.
Storm, Panthers, Sharks, Brisbane.
Yeah, they're my top 4 too.
Yeah.
But
I do think Manly can make it in there.
Well, I had the Dogs. I had the Dogs at 5, Manly at 6. I had South at 7 and the Roosters at 8 before the injuries. So,
well, after last week's game, if I was doing it again, I would have the Roosters out.
I'm the same.
And,
I'd have the Roosters out.
I think I'd put the Canberra Raiders, but I'm not. I can't do that because I've seen a game. This was before I saw.
Yeah, I'm the same. I actually, interestingly, just outside the 8, I didn't have the Raiders. I had the Newcastle Knights.
Yeah, look, they've won. They've gotten into the top 8. I think it's 4 of the last 5 seasons. So, of course, they've got to be a chance.
Who's your 9 and 10?
No, I didn't go beyond that, but I mean, the Knights, the Raiders. I thought the Dolphins might have been a chance, but after seeing them last week not win that game, I've gone off them a little bit.
I had the Warriors. Warriors are my spoon.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think Parramatta Eels will challenge the Warriors there. I don't think the Tigers are going to win the spoon this year. I might change that opinion if they can't beat Parramatta this week. But look, there's 6 or 7 teams that can make 7 or 8. But I think I'm pretty confident that the top 6 that I listed will be in the top 8. It would take, a calamitous year of injuries and or suspensions for any of those teams to not make it, I would expect.
Yeah, I actually think that your 8 would be... It's that 7th and 8th position, and if certain teams had their full complement, you could argue yes, and if certain teams play to their potential, you could argue yes. But I think it's about time we see a team building make it in there, and if you're one of those traditional sides outside the 8 or the fringe 8 who just make it in or make it out, and you want to make a charge this year, this is your year to do it. I really think it is. Anyway, that's the way it is for round 1 and predicting round 2. Griffo, thank you for being a part of this yet again.
Well, thank you, Shane.
And thank you for listening, listeners. I hope your team win, unless you go for the Dragons. I hope you lose dismally. But outside of that, it's going to be a fantastic... Look, I was blown away by round 1, and if the rest of the rounds can produce that, well, then that's...
Oh, there was no doubt, Shane. There was some amazing rugby league played by some of the teams.
And I actually think this round, like we said, when you're looking at games, and I know certain people are talking to me and going, "Oh, I'm so looking forward to the South game," and they're not South fans, and you're going, okay, and you're looking forward to the Raiders, Broncos. You're looking forward to see what the Sharks can do.
I'm looking forward to the Power West game.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's going to be one of the crackers. So it's going to be all hands on deck this weekend. Thank you once again, everyone. I hope your team wins again. If you go for the Dragons, I hope you don't. But thanks for listening. Take care and bye for now.
Have a good week. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.